have an interesting question for you, one that you may not have ever thought about. What causes your lungs to inflate? It's not a fan. So it's like a fan causes them to inflate. But we all know, if you think about the process of breathing in, you say, I can, breathe in heavily like that, or I can sit very quietly and something is going on as I am breathing. Now, what's going on, of course, is my diaphragm is moving down whenever I breathe in. So if you think about it, the thoracic cavity is a closed cavity, and it has a certain amount of area. You could measure it in cubic centimeters, cubic inches, a certain amount of area, and we have barometric pressure pushing down on us throughout. And we've said as long as our glottis is open, the air is open and exchangeable with the atmosphere. And so what happens when your diaphragm moves down, what happens to the volume of your thoracic cavity? It becomes bigger. So you go from this volume to this volume, all the way down to here. And so as a result of that, the pressure in your thoracic cavity momentarily, as the diaphragm moves down, becomes lower than the atmospheric pressure, but it's always pushing down on you, and so it inflates your lungs. And then when the diaphragm comes back up, the air pressure increases inside of your lungs greater than barometric pressure, and it flows out. So you have this process of increasing the volume of your thoracic cavity and then decreasing the volume, increasing and decreasing, and that's what causes ventilation. Now, we'll talk next time. I think this is going to be my final slide for today. We'll talk next time about how we have different kinds of respiration. We have forced, heavy breathing and light breathing, and so light breathing we'll call tidal volume, and that's just this, it's easy in and out of air. And then we have forced inspiration and forced expiration. Now, if you think about it, so your diaphragm can move up and down, and that's going to increase the volume in your thoracic cavity as it's down, and then decrease it when it rises up. But if you want to breathe harder, what do you have to do? You can lift the thoracic cage. Lift your rib cage. So as you push down with the diaphragm, you raise the rib cage. And how do you do that? You do it with a couple of sets of muscles, pectoralis minor. Remember, we have the pectoral major muscles that are your outside, your surface chest muscles. But deep to them, we have pectoralis minor. They raise your rib cage. They raise your thoracic cage, increasing the volume within your thorax even more. And the external intercostals are also there, pulling the thoracic cage up. That's for forced inspiration. That increases the volume of your thoracic cavity. You bring larger volume of air in. Okay, then, in contrast to that, we have forced expiration. And in forced expiration, you're going to compress the thoracic cavity with your internal intercostals. And in addition to that, you're going to push down on your abdomen and push the organs up against the diaphragm, and that's going to decrease, in both cases, it's going to further decrease the volume of the thoracic cavity. And so these muscles are what are going to be involved in forced inspiration and forced expiration. So We haven't covered a whole lot of material today, but since we have a test over other material, I didn't want to go too far with the new material before you get through that test. So here we go. I'm sure I'll be communicating with you a lot more tomorrow. I still am in the process of finishing up those lab tests. That's a nightmare to me, but I'm trying to get all that settled away, and we'll get it posted so that you kind of know where things are.